like that, all the speculation of what the Denver Broncos will do with their 15th overall pick has come to an end. And now we can just look forward to how this Broncos offense will evolve with the help of Alabama wide receiver Jerry Jeudy. Hello, everyone, and welcome back for day 2 of the Broncos Virtual War Room presented by Bud Light. The first half of the first round truly could not have unfolded any better for John Elway and company, as Jerry Jeudy, a guy that most mock drafts had going somewhere between 8 and 14, was still there, ripe for the picking. Jeudy is the highest drafted wide receiver in Broncos history and joins an elite group of outstanding first-round picks this franchise has come away with over the years. Here's Matt Boyer with a quick look at some of the Broncos' most impactful first-rounders.
Broncos select Jerry Jeudy, wide receiver, Alabama.
End zone, touchdown!
Jerry Jeudy is now among an exclusive and historic group that is comprised of Broncos first-round picks. Before last night's pick, the Broncos made 45 first-round selections in the history of the modern NFL draft, the first coming in 1967. A pretty solid selection considering it was a Hall of Famer, Floyd Little.
Three-time Syracuse All-America Floyd Little headed the Broncos selection list. And time would prove that the Broncos picked wisely throughout the draft.
Little is just one of 2 Broncos Hall of Famers to be drafted by Denver in the first round. The other one is Denver's 1989 first-round pick, the newly minted Hall of Famer, Steve Atwater.
Denver's first draft choice, Steve Atwater, number 27, started at free safety, and his impact was immediate.
The Broncos have also seen immediate impacts from more recent first-round picks, the most notable being the first selection John Elway ever made for the Broncos back in 2011.
The ball is free! Denver's got it! Touchdown, Denver!
Von Miller's feats in Super Bowl 50 are well known at this point, but you could see the potential even in year 1. Back in 2011, as a rookie, Vaughn was named a Pro Bowler after tying the Broncos' rookie sack record with 11.5 sacks.
Now being chased almost as the ball stripped away as Von Miller will get a sack.
But that remarkable record would be broken by another first-round draft choice after the Broncos made Bradley Chubb their first pick in 2018. And Chubb went on to collect 12 sacks his rookie season.
And Chubb's got him and clubs him around the neck and takes him down.
And even though it's barely been a year, 2019 first-rounder Noah Fant established himself as a budding offensive weapon for the Broncos last year. Fant finished the season catching 3 TDs and leading all rookie tight ends in receptions and yards.
Play action. Get it to Jeudy.
As for Jerry Jeudy, it hasn't even been 24 hours, so it's a little early to start setting goals and expectations for the rookie. But all he has to do is look to the past and know it is possible to become the next in a long line of great Broncos first-rounders.
While Jerry Jeudy was able to make it onto our live stream last night, a poor internet connection left us wanting to hear more from him today. So we have the newest member of the Broncos digital team, Sydney Jones, standing by with the newest member of the Denver Broncos.
Well, first off, Jerry, congratulations and welcome to Broncos Country. And also, I know it's your birthday today too, so happy birthday. Where does being drafted into the NFL rank as far as birthday presents go?
Oh, sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, I know it's your birthday, so I mean, you got a great present for your birthday, getting drafted to the NFL. Safe to say that's probably your best birthday present so far.
Yeah, you could say that. A dream come true on my birthday, so yeah, it was one of the first experience.
Absolutely, yeah. How are you feeling so far? Has it sunk in yet?
Yeah, I don't feel like it really had hit me yet. Probably it's gonna hit me once I start actually putting on the pads and being out there on the field with them. But right now, I'm just enjoying the moment.
So what were your first initial thoughts when you got the call and saw that it was from Denver, Colorado?
You know, I never thought Denver was really interested because, you know, on social media and all the mock drafts, you see me going to the Jets or to the or other teams, but I never seen no mock draft had me going to the Broncos. So once I seen me calling me, it was just a shock.
How do you feel about moving out here to Denver? I know you're from Florida, and playing in Alabama wasn't too far from home, but out here it's, you know, halfway across the country.
Yeah, I never been to Denver, so I'm excited to see what's over there. I'm the type of person that like to see new things, so I'm excited to see what's in Denver.
Yeah, it's awesome. You're going to love it. Now, experts have called you one of the smoothest, best route runners that they've seen coming out of college in, you know, many years. it's obvious you've put a lot of time into building your game and preparing yourself for the NFL. And I know there's a video floating around right now of you working out yesterday on draft day. And I think I heard that you had a workout in this morning already. Where has that determination come from?
Just knowing what I've been through. So, and I know all the hard work, blood, sweat, and tears I put in. Now, like, all that paid off with the draft, and I still got more goals that I need to achieve coming into the season. So I still got to take care of my body, eat right, and keep working hard to be the best I could be.
Absolutely. Now, where do you see your game fitting in to this Denver Broncos team?
I feel like they can use me anywhere on the field, however they want to use me, inside, outside, just anywhere, so they can give me a ball and make plays.
Now, I know you got to talk to Courtland Sutton a little bit yesterday. How excited are you to work with him? And, did he give you any insight as to, kind of how the team works?
No, I didn't really get too much in details about that, but I'm very excited to work with him. He's a Pro Bowl receiver that I can learn a lot from, and I'm ready to make plays beside him.
Yeah. Have you heard from any of your other future teammates yet? Anyone reached out to you personally?
Yeah, I had talked to Duke Dodson. Von Miller hit me up. Drew Lock hit me up. Yeah.
Awesome. What'd they say to you? Just kind of congratulations?
Yeah, they were just congratulating me.
Mm-hmm. Now, with the pick yesterday, you became the highest drafted wide receiver by the Broncos ever. How does that make you feel? I mean, you're already in Broncos history and you haven't even played in a game yet.
Bro, I didn't know that was the highest. I've been the highest draft pick. I didn't know that. That's something I just learned. Now that I found that out, it's a exciting moment for them to believe in me, the coaching staff and the whole facility just believe in me and give me an opportunity to be part of the Denver Broncos.
Mm-hmm. And on social media, you got to see a lot of your new teammates, such as Von Miller, Kareem Jackson, your new QB, Drew Lock, expressing how excited they are to play with you. How does it feel to finally get to this point and receive such praise and excitement from such successful players so far?
It feels good. You want to go to a team that you got a good support system that show you support, and that's friendly. So seeing those guys reach out to me and congratulate me for my success, I'm really appreciative.
Yeah. And I know on Drew Lock's video to you, he even went as far as saying he's already ready to go through the playbook with you. Are you going to take him up on that offer?
Oh, yeah, I'm actually going to call him later on today to get to know him a little bit more and just see anytime.
And I know a lot of us are wondering, but how did you get Commissioner Roger Goodell to make that TikTok with you yesterday?
So actually, he asked me, did I want to make one, and I decided to make one.
Oh, he did? He reached out to you and wanted to see if you wanted to make one with him?
Yes.
That's awesome. How'd you guys decide on that dance? I know there's a lot of dances trending on TikTok right now, but
I think he decided on that dance because it was less complicated.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you sitting down with me on your birthday, but I will let you get back to celebrating, and hopefully you'll be out here in Denver here soon.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thanks so much, Sydney. I know I can speak on behalf of Broncos Country when I say that we are thrilled to have him here in Denver. Well, given the fact that Jeudy was the Broncos' #1 prospect on their big board, you can only imagine how excited head coach Vic Fangio and general manager John Elway are that they were able to snatch him up. So Phil Milani spoke to Elway and Fangio after the first round wrapped up last night to learn what they love most about their newest weapon.
The first round just wrapping up, chatting with John Elway and Vic Fangio. John, you finally picked an Alabama player. What did you like about Jerry Jeudy?
You know what, Phil? You're right. It is our first Alabama player, and it's we're thrilled to have him. Obviously, Jerry is a tremendous athlete that has had tremendous success in a very tough league down in the SEC, but also has the knowledge and the background, having played in the pro offense down there at Alabama too. So, I mean, Jerry's a guy who can stick his foot in the ground, really get out of a break, does a great job running routes, has a great feel for it, and has tremendous hands. And so it was a need for us on the offensive side, and so we were thrilled that he was still there, and we're excited to have Jerry on our football team.
Vic, what do you think that he brings to this offense, and do you feel like his skill set complements Courtland Sutton pretty well?
Yes, it does. Anytime you can add another receiving threat, it has a trickle-down effect for everybody. Has a trickle-down effect to the different coverages that you'll be facing with two good receivers. It has a trickle-down effect that it may help your running game, if teams are playing coverages to stop two receivers. So we're excited to have him, and I think anytime you can add somebody that will not only play his position well, but can affect the way defenses play you, and other people can feed off of that, that's good.
John, at 15, Jeudy is the highest wide receiver ever taken by the Broncos. And with this year's class so deep at that position, why did you feel like that was the right move to go there? I mean, do you feel like he's a generational type of talent?
Well, I mean, I think he's got a chance to. Obviously, it was tremendous success at Alabama. I think he had 77 catches last year. And, you're right. I mean, Phil, it was a deep class, but we felt like he was the class of the class. And so we're, fortunate to get him at 15, and you never know. I mean, there was a run a little bit later on wideouts, and a lot of guys, I think there were 6 or 7 wideouts went in that first round. And so, when you're in a position of need, but also, your guy is there, it's tough to pass on that. And so you never know what's going to fall in the second round. We still, like I've said earlier, we feel like there's still a lot of good football players on the board and have a chance to get a real good player in the second round also.
Vic, did you ever have discussions about maybe trying to move up for Jeudy? There was some rumors about that before the draft started.
No, I don't think that ever got very serious at any point, but John could answer that better.
Did you ever feel, John, like you were going to have to move up if you wanted to get Jeudy?
You know what, Phil? We thought that we had a lot of good options at 15. And so however it fell, and we tried with all our mocks the last week, that we really tried to cover our bases. And so, we didn't feel like it was necessary for us to move up. We felt like we're going to get a good football player at 15. We just did, just depended on how it fell. And so, it fell with us being able to pick up, Jerry Jeudy at wide receiver.
And then last one for both of you here. Vic, I'll start with you. This was your second time around going through the draft as a head coach. Did it get a little bit easier?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, last year it was a little different in that since we were a new staff, we had already started our off-season program. We had a mini camp. We were into the first phase of the off-season. So, half of my days or so were involved with that. And I probably missed, about half or 40% of the meetings that I was able to go to more this year. So got more involved, and I enjoyed it, and it was a good process working with John and the guys. It was enjoyable.
And John, for you, this is the 10th time around. Do you take any little things from each draft and now use them this time around?
Yeah, I mean, I think you gain experience every time you go through it. You get a feel for it, but ultimately, Phil, you never really know, and you can try to work different things and try to move around, and you never, for us to be able to get Jerry Jeudy at 15 when we weren't sure, the top 2 receivers were even going to be there, and so it's the one thing that you learn about the draft is don't expect anything normal about the draft, because it's always going to be a little bit different, and so that's what's exciting about it also. But Phil, it's good for us to get out of the first day with a guy like Jerry Jeudy in a position that we really need. We believe is going to be a very good football player. So we're excited about going into day 2.
Well, I'm sure it'll be a busy day 2. 4 picks coming up in round 2 and 3. Vic and John, thank you so much for your time.
You got it, Phil.
All right. Thank you, Phil.
Coach Fangio watched all the tape on Jerry Jeudy, so I think he has a pretty good idea of Jeudy's strengths and weaknesses. But instead of delving into the tape, Matt Boyer is standing by with the man who knows what kind of player the Broncos are getting better than anyone. It's Alabama Crimson Tide head coach Nick Saban.
Thank you so much, Alexis. Coach,
Jerry is a guy that you have known for quite a long time, since his high school days. When did you and your staff realize that Jerry Jeudy was going to be a special football player?
Oh, we knew when he was a junior in high school, just, his ability to drop his weight and burst out of a break, and had great speed. So, he wasn't quite as big then. He's developed, a lot of maturity from a physical standpoint, which has certainly, made him a more effective player. But he did a fabulous job for us. He was really, really productive. He's a hard worker, really, really good guy to have in your organization.
We see the accolades, Biletnikoff Award winner, an All-American, a national champion, but on a day-to-day micro level, what does Jerry do to separate himself with his work ethic with the game of football?
Well, we actually had to try to monitor his work outside of the work that we did so we wouldn't have overuse problems with him, all right, which is not normal in a lot of cases, but we'd have practice and he'd go in the weight room and work extra and do things. And, we said, Jerry, this is not really the time of year that you need to be sort of doing all that stuff. And, but he was always a good practice player and had a good attitude about things. He's smart. He's very instinctive, playing the position. Great option route runner. Like I said, I think his greatest strength is he can drop his weight, get in and out of a break, and accelerate. But he's also fast. There's a lot of guys that can do that, but then maybe they're quicker than fast. He's quick, but he's fast. And I think that's a lethal combination.
Coach Fangio last night talked about the crispness of Jerry's routes and just how taken he was with those on film. How much you mentioned his work ethic, but how great is his attention to detail when he is running routes?
Really good. I mean, I think he understands, how to get open. We've had some pretty good coaches around here. Stark's been a coordinator in the NFL for 2 years. So we've always had guys that have a little bit more experience maybe relative to what it takes to play in the NFL because of our NFL background. So I think that really does enhance our guys' development when it comes to readiness to play at the next level. And so I think Jerry's pretty accomplished in understanding how to run routes, how to get open, and how you got to pay attention to detail. One of his things when he was a younger player was he didn't have enough patience. He'd cut things short and all that. He kind of learned that, that's not the way to do it. Doing it correctly, having patience is the best way to get open. And he got very, very proficient at it.
Jerry's quarterback now is going to be Drew Lock, somebody who you've coached against before. Drew's ability to extend plays, we saw that a lot last year. How much can Drew's mobility and having a quarterback that can extend plays just elevate Jerry's skill set?
Well, I think that Jerry understands. Tua was pretty good at that around here. So our receivers all understood, okay, when this happens, what should I do? Because there is a method to that madness. You just don't start running around. So the quarterback kind of has an expectation of what you're going to do. I'm sure, John Elway used to drive me crazy when we used to play against him. So I'm sure you all have a method to your madness when it comes to what do we do when the quarterback scrambles. And Jerry will be he'll be really, really good because he's very instinctive at being able to apply that in those kind of situations, and I think that'll be very helpful to him.
We'll get you out of here on this one. You've had plenty of great wideouts come through your program. Amari Cooper and Calvin Ridley, when we're talking about South Florida guys come to mind. How confident are you that Jerry can be that next in line to have success?
Oh, I don't think there's any question about the fact that he'll have, a lot of success in the NFL. I mean, all you have to do is, I don't like to compare players, but if you compare their output and their production here as a player, Jerry certainly in his own way, in his own style, was just as productive as any of those guys. Some of those guys were really good outside receivers. Some of them were good slot guys. Jerry's kind of a combination of both, but I think he can really do his damage when he's playing in the slot. And I think he's going to have a tremendous amount of success.
Coach Saban, we really appreciate your time. Best of luck with the rest of the draft.
All right, thank you. You guys,
We'll toss it back to you, Alexis.
Thanks so much, Matt. Man, it is so great to hear from Coach Saban. Specifically, I loved what he said about Jerry Jeudy's work ethic. We all know how important it is to have high character players in this Broncos locker room. I think it's safe to say that he's a perfect fit for the Broncos.
Yeah, we heard from John Elway just how important the locker room was going to be, that leadership quality that he wants to see from the young guys. And when Coach Saban says they had to monitor the extra work that Jerry was doing on the side outside of his normal workload at Alabama, that was definitely pretty telling. All right, we're going to toss it back over to Alexis now, who's standing by with James Palmer.
Thanks so much, Matt. James Palmer of the NFL Network joining us for the second day in a row. James, you said it yesterday. The Broncos were going to take Justin Jefferson. I have a feeling you said that because you probably didn't think Jerry Jeudy was still going to be on the board.
Lex, let's make a couple things clear. One, I called it last year that they were going to go with Noah Fant. So I was allowed to be somewhat off this year.
Sure.
But at least I got the position correct. I knew that was what they wanted to do. And I knew they were doing a lot of work on Justin Jefferson. And in my mind, I think that's because maybe in the play of moving back, they were hoping he would be there. And in the way the draft fell, he actually would have been if they would have slid back a little bit. And I think you're right. It's because they didn't think Jerry Jeudy was going to be there. I asked John Elway that very question, and he told me less than 50% of their mock drafts had Jerry Jeudy falling to them at 15. Actually, they spent most of their time in their mock drafts in the weeks leading into it. What were they going to do at 15 with Jeudy off the board? It's like, how do we know he's our guy. So if he's gone, what do we do at 15? Do we move back? What are the other players we're looking at? And then a couple of days ago, actually, is when they stopped kind of looking to move up trade-wise because they thought they'd get a good football player and started getting a sense maybe one of these top three receivers would fall to them. Jeudy was number one on their board. Who had him going at 15? I don't think too many mocks had everybody kind of falling at the receiver spot because of the aggression towards the quarterbacks and the tackles. But I was right at the position. And I was right last year, so I'll stick with that.
Well, good job. I'm still proud of you. How do you see Jerry Jeudy fitting into Pat Shurmur's system?
I think you have the best route runner in the draft. And this is a system where almost every route is utilized. I mean, receivers have to run a lot of different routes in this system. So getting a guy that fits that works perfectly. And I think the best way to describe it is you now have a guy, and this was a great answer that Vic Fangio had to me last night when I said, how do you go against defending teams with two top-tier wide receivers, who I now think the Denver Broncos are? He only thinks in this deep class, a third of these guys required extra attention. And Judy's one of those guys that requires extra attention. Well, you can't give extra attention to him, and you can't give extra attention to Courtland Sutton at the same time. So I think Elway put it best that this is going to make Courtland Sutton better, the offense better, and obviously Jerry Jeudy contributing on his own, making himself better. I do think it's a guy that can play inside and outside, and he's comfortable playing both. That wasn't the case with all of these guys, so I think that was part that played into it as well. But I think the route running aspect of it is he can come in, step right on the field, and from the sounds of John Elway, he's going to play right away opposite of Sutton. So I think they're a completely different offense now that you have all of these different weapons. I think it's the route running in the inside and the outside that he can play is the main reason why he's going to be effective sooner rather than later with some of these other receivers.
Well, you've said it before, given the level of competition in the AFC West, the Broncos needed to get faster. Do you think Jeudy can be the difference maker for this team in terms of speed and winning the West?
Yeah, I think winning the West is tough because I do think the Chiefs pick at 32 might be one of the best picks in the first round, and it probably infuriated everyone that they got another weapon. No, I mean, I think it probably makes everybody angry that they go and get Patrick Mahomes another weapon and a really, really good running back. But I do think Jeudy creates such an issue for defenses. With the more weapons you have, somebody's going to be open. Now, this all falls on Drew Lock finding where the deficiency is going to be in the defense, and whether it's everybody goes out on the routes and Melvin Gordon's forgotten about in the flat and you can dump it off and it's a 15, 20-yard gain. And you got Noah Fant operating in the middle of the field, one of the more athletic tight ends in football. I think teams are going to have a hard time covering everybody. Now, stretching the field, I think he's fast enough. I do think he's fast enough for that because he also creates, and if he's not getting downfield, he also creates tons of separation, which allows him to get a lot of yards after the carry, which is another aspect that makes him a little bit different than some of these other receivers. Other receivers might be really good at catching contested balls, but a lot of times that means they're not creating separation because the DB's right there. He creates a lot of separation, which allows a 7-yard gain to be a 12-yard gain like that.
All right, James, because you are 0 for 1 for predictions this draft, I'm going to try to, dumb this down for you a little bit, make it a little bit easier. The Broncos have 4 picks today. Give me one name of a guy who will be wearing orange and blue.
Alexis, I'm glad you dumbed it down for me. I did spend 6 years at The Ohio State University. So I'm going to go with Lloyd Cushenberry, the center from LSU. I think he would be a perfect piece in the middle of that offensive line that they have now brilliantly started putting together. I think that's my pick. And if that didn't happen, erase this.
Okay. We will erase it. You're live, but we'll erase it.
Oh,
James,
okay. Well,
thank you so much. We're going to check in with you on Monday on Broncos Beat to see if you are correct. And speaking of Broncos Beat, let's go ahead and bring in Cecil Lambie from 104.3 The Fan, who's joining us now. Cecil, do you think the first half of the first round could have unfolded any better for the Denver Broncos?
No, this was an absolutely perfect setup for the Denver Broncos and for John Elway. When you look at all the teams ahead of them and how things fell and how you had that run on offensive tackles, which we were all expecting, and then to have teams wait really on wide receiver for the Broncos to get the best wide receiver in the best wide receiver class in NFL history, it's a godsend. It's a fantastic move for the Broncos.
Okay, so where does Jerry Jeudy play? Does he play in the slot? Is he a guy that we could expect to be out wide? Where should we expect him to actually line up?
Anywhere, really. You saw other receivers in this draft class, like a Justin Jefferson, where he was exclusively a slot receiver.
Right.
In fact, Jefferson only had 5 snaps out wide all of last year. Well, Jerry Jeudy, in his roughly 600 snaps, about half of them were in the slot. About half of them were out wide.
Ooh, he's really versatile.
Exactly. Very versatile. And you can move him around the formation. He doesn't have that worry or that concern about beating press off the line of scrimmage the way that Justin Jefferson had. So he can be outside. He can create his own space early. I got to tell you, he's got this dead leg move that's just amazing. You're going to lose your mind when you see it. He had, 15 forced missed tackles last year in the open field, mainly because of that, give him the leg, take it away type of thing. It's an amazing move, a savvy player.
Who would you say his best pro comparison is right now?
He's pretty close to Odell Beckham Jr. Again, so for people who are wondering who Jerry Jeudy is, I say watch ODB. And if you like that, you're really going to love Jerry Jeudy because that's about the player he is. Now, I compared his route running more to that of Amari Cooper, former Crimson Tide player as well. Some people would say Stephon Diggs, although he's more explosive, more dangerous than a Stephon Diggs. But, yeah, it's on that level of Odell Beckham Jr., and we know what a superstar he is, and Jerry Jeudy can be that same superstar. He's not a number 2. He's another number 1 to go along with Courtland Sutton.
I know Demaryius Thomas said last week just how important it is for Courtland Sutton to have another number 1 beside him, not, a number 1 and a number 2. So what is your favorite part of Jerry Jeudy's game?
My favorite part of his game is his route running ability. This is very savvy. Most rookie receivers run to wide open spaces and stop, and they're wide open in college. You need a guy that can cut a rug. You need a guy that can create his own separation. Football is all about angles, but it's all about spacing as well. It's become like basketball in that manner. And really the way pro offenses are going, they're creating a wide hash mark like in college football, just with formations, but you must have people that can get open. And when you can run a route, he has speed. He has quickness out of his breaks. He doesn't lose much speed when he makes a move. And the fact that Jerry Jeudy knows how to stack moves on top of moves, he runs his route almost the exact same every time until he makes his break. So you never know what he's going to do. And it's that ability that really is going to force safeties. It's going to force defenses. I mean, with that speed that you have to respect and the fact that he had more catches of 15 yards or more in all of the FBS over the last 2 seasons, this is a guy that's going to take away those safeties. Now Courtland Sutton could be one-on-one unless you put a safety on him, and then Jerry Jeudy's one-on-one. It's fantastic for Pat Shurmur and this Broncos offense.
Okay, really quick before I let you go, we've talked a lot about the importance of not just building a team with great football players, but building a team with great men. What do you know about Jerry Jeudy, the man, and how might he fit into the Broncos roster?
incredibly driven. Back in high school, he was saying he wanted to be one of the best receivers to ever play football. That was in high school. We also know the story about losing his 7-year-old sister when he was in high school, Aaliyah, and how he's dedicated his life and his career in football to her. Outstanding young man, incredibly high character, very driven and motivated.
Sounds like an absolutely perfect fit for the Denver Broncos. Cecil, Lambie, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, let's send it back over to Matt.
Thanks so much, Alexis. Hey, Broncos Country, don't forget to visit denverbroncos.com/2020 War Room and enter to win Broncos prizes, including a helmet that will be autographed by the entire Denver Broncos draft class of 2020.
Yeah, that's a super awesome prize. We're going to pick a winner a little bit later tonight during the second hour of the Broncos Virtual War Room presented by Bud Light. But speaking of Bud Light, make sure you have some Bud Light here for day 2 of the draft. Use the Drizzly code Bud Light for $5 off your Bud Light order. But now let's go ahead and send it over to Matt Boyer, who is standing by with 9 News Broncos insider Mike Kliss.
Thank you, Alexis. Yeah, Mike, last night, a very exciting first round. You had a chance to talk with John Elway. It seemed like he was pretty surprised that Jerry Jeudy was going to be there at 15. Did you think that wide receiver was always going to be the pick?
I thought it was always going to be the pick until yesterday. I don't think the Broncos thought Jeudy was going to be there. Matt, they came in with 2 plans. One, if Jeudy or CD Lamb were there, and if one of them were there, they were going to take them. If they weren't there, plan B was a linebacker. I think Patrick Queen was in their sights. They were going to move back a little bit to try to get Patrick Queen. And then they were going to get their receiver, their starting receiver, in the second round on Friday. So, it worked out that the way that the board fell, receivers were pushed back quite a bit. First one didn't come off the board till Henry Ruggs. Sure enough, the Raiders go the speed, kind of a tip of the hat to the late Al Davis. He definitely would have taken Henry Ruggs. But that left the Broncos top 2 receivers on their board, Jerry Jeudy, CD Lamb. And Jeudy was number 1. He's a little different from Sutton, where Lamb is closer to the style that Cortland is. And Jeudy, I think, is a little more versatile, better route runner, great separation. So he's the reason why the Broncos had him at number 15. And they were a little bit surprised, as Elway put it, a little below 50% chance that he would be there.
You just mentioned it. Jeudy did play inside and out, a little bit similar to Cortland Sutton in kind of in the way that he did play outside a little bit last year. So where do you see him fitting within this Pat Shurmur offense?
Yeah, I think you're going to have Cortland in the X position, kind of where Demaryius was, on the outside where he can run the slants, the post patterns. We all know that Cortland Sutton is so good on those 50-50 balls down the field. They're really 75-25 balls in his case. And then Jeudy, you're going to see in motion a lot. You're going to see him in the slot. You're going to see him on the outside. I think you're going to see him more as a versatile type guy in terms of formation and in terms of route running, I should say. Jeudy is an exceptional route runner. He's far more advanced, at least this is what the scouts say, far more advanced in route running than Cortland Sutton was coming out of SMU. He only had 2 or 3 routes that he had mastered of the route tree. Judy's got that whole route tree and is working on the 2nd or 3rd tree as far as the type of routes he can use. So I think it's a good complement to Cortland Sutton. And now there's no excuses for the Broncos on offense. They are loaded at all the skill positions. It's really going to depend, as it always is and was and shall be, on the quarterback. And Drew Lock has to step up here in year 2.
We'll get you out of here on this one. What are you going to be looking for on day 2? We haven't seen John Elway make a draft day trade yet this year. We've heard about center, defensive back. Where are your eyes going to be on day 2?
Yeah, by the way, they tried to get back into the first round on Thursday for Queen. And old Wink Martindale, the Broncos' old defensive coordinator, he can't resist those speedy linebackers, so he took them with the Ravens at number 28. In the second and third round, I do anticipate the Broncos to try to add. They have 3 picks in the third round. I wouldn't be surprised if they package a couple and try to get back into the second round, where they've really feasted the last couple of years. They got Sutton, Reisner, and Locke in the second round. What a haul that Elway and Russell have had the last 2 years in that round. Yes, they need a cornerback. A center is a need. Not sure about offensive tackle. Inside linebacker, they tried to get Murray or Queen yesterday. Not sure if they like the Logan Wilson inside linebacker types, Michigan. And then you also have, don't be surprised, Matt, if they try to add a little bit more firepower. There's still some speedy, talented receivers out there. I think they came into this offseason wanting to add 2 more receivers. They got one in Jeudy. Let's see if they get another one today.
Well, Mike, we look forward to reading you on 9news.com and seeing all your coverage on the official Broncos home, television home, KUSA TV. Mike, thanks so much for the time.
Thanks a lot, Matt.
All right, Alexis, we'll send it back to you.
Thanks so much, Matt. Here with Chris Trapasso of CBS Sports. Chris, last week on Broncos Beat, we debated your mock draft that had the Broncos taking cornerback C.J. Henderson at 15. But then I checked just before the draft, your recent mock had the Broncos taking Jerry Jeudy. But I think I, like the rest of Broncos country, is wondering, how on God's green earth was he still there?
Yeah, I mean, that's why I had C.J. Henderson to the Broncos in the previous mock draft, because everyone, including myself, expected a run on wide receivers in front of the Broncos, and that if they were to get a top-tier receiver prospect like CeeDee Lamb or Jerry Jeudy, they would have probably had to trade up to get him. So really, this truly is a home run pick for the Broncos. I gave it A grade last night because it's what they needed, and they get a premier talent without having to trade any extra picks.
Okay, historically with your mock drafts, last year you loved Drew Lock. You had him above Kyler Murray. And then the year before, you had Courtland Sutton as your number 1 wide receiver. So is it safe to say that you're loving the way that this Broncos offense is coming together?
Yeah, I mean, I guess if I was John Elway, I would have drafted pretty similarly in these first couple rounds the past 2 or 3 years for the Broncos. I just loved Drew Lock's experience at Missouri, his huge arm, that he kind of played with a gunslinger mentality, that if he threw an interception, he would come back on the next drive and lead a touchdown. And we saw him play really well down the stretch once he got onto the field for the Broncos. You saw that vertical element to their passing game that wasn't there earlier in the season. And then with Courtland Sutton, he just checked all the boxes for me. He's big. He had an awesome combine, super productive at SMU. I have no idea how he fell to the second round 2 years ago. And after a pretty good rookie season, we saw him start to really emerge as one of the better young wide receivers, a true star, in my opinion, in his second year with the Broncos. Pairing him now with Jerry Jeudy, defenses can't just scheme to stop Courtland Sutton. They have the best route runner and the most explosive wide receiver in this draft in Jerry Jeudy across from him on the Broncos offense.
When you were looking at, those top 3 wide receivers and you were putting them in your mock drafts, how did you split hairs specifically between Jeudy and CeeDee Lamb, given the fact that John Elway and company, they had CeeDee Lamb as an option when they were on the clock?
Yeah, that's a really good question. The difference between those two to me, CeeDee Lamb gives you a little bit better yards after the catch. He didn't see press coverage a lot at Oklahoma. Jerry Jeudy saw more of it at Alabama. But Jerry Jeudy's, like I said, a better route runner. He runs routes like he's a 10-year NFL veteran. So I think that's why the Broncos went Jerry Jeudy over CeeDee Lamb. They wanted someone that could come in right away, beat press coverage. A lot of rookies struggle in that area. And even with Courtland Sutton, it took him probably a year to learn the intricacies of route running. Jerry Jeudy is as advanced of a route runner as I've ever seen. So that's probably what went into it for John Elway and the Broncos front office last night.
What positions do you think the Broncos really need to focus on with their premium picks here in day 2? And what positions will have greater value later in day 3?
Well, I think with the second round pick, if a good offensive tackle is there, it wouldn't be a bad idea for them to go in that direction. With everything about Drew Lock, you're building around him. You have Cortland Sutton, you have Jerry Jeudy now. That wouldn't be a bad idea. Ezra Cleveland from Boise State is still there. There's still a few good offensive tackles that would be worth a second-round pick. But beyond that, if the Broncos just almost went the rest of their draft on the defensive side, linebacker, a nose tackle to play next to Jarrell Casey, and maybe even adding some more secondary help even after bringing in A.J. Boye, I think that would make the most sense to really build that defense back up that could really, in an indirect way, help Drew Lock in this offense.
All right, Chris Trapasso, thank you so much for joining us. We really, really appreciate it. Hey, enjoy day 2 of the draft.
Thanks.
You heard Alexis mention Broncos beat early in her interview with Chris, and as we get closer to the season, that is going to continue to be must-watch television. Alexis hosts a weekly roundtable discussion with some of your favorite Broncos beat reporters every Monday at 6:30 p.m. on KTVD Channel 20, and that's just Monday. Every weeknight, there's something new to help quench your thirst for Broncos content.
Yeah, that's right. Every Friday, Ryan Edwards and Benjamin Albright, they host Broncos Country Tonight on KTVD Channel 20, and they keep you up to date on all the latest storylines surrounding your Denver Broncos. But speaking of that dynamic duo, they are standing by right now to give us a little taste of what you might hear on Broncos Country Tonight at 6:30 if you tune in here tonight. Ryan, Ben, take it away.
Thanks, Alexis. Ben, let's talk about what the Broncos were able to accomplish last night. We'll get into tonight's festivities, but last night the Broncos were able to stay put at 15 and get their guy. They wanted a wide receiver. They had 2 of them available. Why were Jerry Jeudy and CeeDee Lamb both available at 15?
Well, CeeDee Lamb was, I guess, a little bit lower on some boards than other people, and I
feel like that's a shot. I feel like you're taking a shot at me.
One.
A little bit of a shot.
And then the Niners didn't get their receiver target, so the Niners were kind of counting on the Raiders to take CeeDee Lamb because the receiver they wanted was Henry Ruggs, and so once that happened, then they were able to kind of move back a little bit, let the Bucs come up and get their guy, and then they turn around and went a different direction and got Brandon Ayuk later on. Now they were claiming he was the number 1 receiver on their board, but we all know that's not true. So it's, and it's funny how that works. Everybody gets the number 1 player that was on their board every draft, every year. It's weird how that works out. But, I thought the Broncos might have actually done that. And I think that the way things shook out for them, I thought it was great. You get a receiver that's pro ready, that comes from an offense that, put him up against number 1 corners week in, week out. I think Jerry Jeudy's a great addition to this team. I think he's going to be good. I'm interested to see how he fits in there. A little bit different than Ruggs. Ruggs, more of a vertical guy, take the top off guy. Judy's not really as much that guy, but he is great with the ball in his hands. He's great after the catch, and I'm interested to see how he fits into this offense.
And do you feel like the Broncos still need another receiving weapon? They just spent their first-round pick. You said at the beginning of the pre-draft process you thought the Broncos might go with 2 wide receivers in the top 100. You still feel like that's a possibility?
I think it's a possibility. If they find a right guy falls in their lap, absolutely. Think about adding a kind of quality slot guy, some of the guys that are still out there as you look at the as you look at the board on day 2. Some of the guys are still, you get a quality guy, and now all of a sudden you got a stacked deck, almost like the Cowboys. You look at what Dallas did. Now if you stack the box against them, it's a suicide note. You do it. You don't stack the box against them, it's a suicide note. So I think the Broncos, you get that third receiver, all of a sudden you're looking at a situation where you've got to play them straight up, and that's a problem.
I mean, meanwhile, though, for the Broncos, if they didn't go wide receiver, how do you feel about the receiving core as it stands?
I think it's pretty good. I mean, you've got Cortland Sutton, you got Jerry Jeudy, you got Noah Fant. If Deshaun Hamilton is able to take that step up and be the slot, soft spot, and zone guy, that'd be good. We don't know about Juwan Winfrey yet. He's going to be entering his 2nd year. Maybe have a shot at that. Tim Patrick has always kind of been that clutch third down goal line guy. If he can continue that, that'd be good as well. So I'm satisfied with the receiving core as it is. I'd like to be ecstatic about it.
You'd like to be ecstatic. Okay. Well, before we get into some other day 2 guys that you'd like to see targeted, what did you think about the overall first round, how things fell? There were a few reaches we talked about. The Raiders. They had Damon Arnett, which we thought was kind of one of the bigger reaches of the night. The Seattle Seahawks always seem to find a way to put a reach in there. That's just kind of what they do. But some other teams got some incredible value, like the Baltimore Ravens got Patrick Queen.
Yeah, that was pretty impressive, and we all know the Broncos were calling around there at the end of the first. Could have been for a guy like Patrick Queen, maybe see what was going on there, but Broncos didn't want to pay the price to get back in. Ravens ultimately end up with him. I looking around, I thought the Raiders had a weird pick there with Taylor at the corner. I thought there were better corners available. I thought the first half of the draft was pretty predictable overall. I mean, yeah, Lamb went to the Cowboys. That was a little bit of a slip, but within 3 or 4 picks of where he thought he was going to go, we had the right tackles we had tackles to the right teams, maybe not the right tackle, but tackles to the right teams. And most of the first 15 picks were pretty easy, I felt, to predict. It was after that is where it got a little convoluted, but pretty streamlined. Started off slow, and then they started rolling through it. I didn't see too many technical issues. I thought it was fairly decent overall.
All right, so let's open up day 2 here for a minute. In my opinion, if Lloyd Cushenberry somehow falls in the Broncos' lap at 46, that's a no-brainer. Cornerback could be a need here. Eventually, maybe inside linebacker. How would you like to see that shake out?
Yeah, I think Cushenberry, if he's there, is kind of a no-brainer. Beyond that, there's several corners I think that are available that would be great. You look at the inside linebackers. I'm a little less ready to press the gas on some of that unless one of them falls in their lap. And there are some good players available, but I don't think they need to press the issue on that. I think if they're going to press the issue, if they're going to use draft picks to move up, I think Cushenberry and the corner are the ones they need to have their eye on as far as that goes.
All right, looking forward to doing our show tonight on KOA News Radio. We'll have live coverage throughout the evening. Now we'll send it back to you.
Time now to give a quick shout out to our friends from Bud Light for being the proud partner of the Broncos Virtual War Room. Don't forget Broncos Country. As you enjoy the Broncos Virtual War Room, please consider supporting your local Colorado Restaurant Association members and their employees by ordering takeout. Just because you have to be at home doesn't mean you can't have good food ordered in, supporting those local restaurants. Go to budlight.com/open for takeout right now. Alexis is now standing by with one of your favorite Broncos beat reporters, Nikki Zavala from The Athletic.
Thanks so much, Matt. Here with Nikki Zavala of The Athletic. Nikki, this was your 6th draft since you've been covering the Denver Broncos as one of their lead beat writers. How was covering this draft and, the virtual nature of it different for you in comparison to the previous 5 years?
Yeah, most years we're sitting in the media room for days. It feels like 3 days you're stuck at the team's facility because you're there, you're reporting on, who they pick, and then you wait for John Elway and the head coach, and you wait to hear from the players. So instead of really long days at the team's facility, I get to watch from the comfort of my couch with my dog. So it's not too bad, actually.
Not too shabby.
A little bit different. Yeah, it's interesting. It is a little odd when you realize you're just watching people make phone calls from their basement. But it's fun. It's still a neat thing to cover when you realize, how many guys you just see their lives change instantly.
Yeah. A dramatic, life-changing moment. Immediately, you just pick up a phone and there it is. Speaking of picking up the phone, John Elway picked up the phone at 15 and he called Jerry Jeudy, wide receiver from Alabama. I don't think any of us suspected that Jerry Jeudy would still be there at 15 for the Denver Broncos.
Yeah, Elway himself said he was a bit surprised. And he not only had Jerry Jeudy, who was the number 1 player on their draft board going in, but also CeeDee Lamb, the receiver out of Oklahoma, and he was their number 2 player. So it was a good situation to be in, and they knew right away that they wanted to get Jerry. They had even looked into what it would cost to move up if they felt like somebody else was going to get Jerry Jeudy and CeeDee Lamb ahead of them. They considered moving back. So they had all sorts of contingency plans, but ultimately decided to stand pat. And ultimately their guy fell to him. So it worked out well.
What do you think when John Elway and Vic Fangio, when they were putting together their big board, what do you think the biggest difference was between Jerry Jeudy, CeeDee Lamb, and you can even add Henry Ruggs III to that board as well?
Yeah, I think this year there probably wasn't, a ton of big differences. I think they would have been quite happy with either of them. I think from Jerry Jeudy, though, they felt that he was the most polished route runner. He really looks like a seasoned pro when you watch him play. His ability to create separation with his speed, his breaks, but he's just a polished player, and I think it's especially helpful for a young quarterback where you're not asking him to, thread the needles on these really tight passes. He's somebody who can kind of create that cushion for the passes. So I think he's a solid pickup. I think he's going to help not only Drew Lock and the rest of the offense, but Courtland Sutton especially, maybe take some double teams off him. So this should help the offense. I know it was, a big offseason kind of devoted to building around Drew Lock. And I think this was the last missing piece. Not the only missing piece, but the major missing piece,
Well, speaking of other missing pieces, let's shift our attention to day 2 that's about to get underway here in just a little bit. You know, the Broncos, they have 4 picks here tonight. What do you think they should do with those 4 picks? What are those key positions they need to fill?
Yeah, I think the good thing is they have a lot of options. They can use all 4. They could try to package them and move up if they wanted to. They could even try to add to their collection and move back and get more draft capital. I would think that the top 2 positions, top 3 really, cornerback, interior offensive line, and tackle. Lloyd Cushenberry, one of the top 2 tackles, top 2 centers projected coming in. He's still available, and he might still be available at number 46 in the first round. But if they want to get one of the corners that's available, like Trayvon Diggs out of Alabama, Jalen Johnson out of Utah, they might have to move up if they have their heart set on them. Ezra Cleveland out of Boise State, Josh Jones out of Houston. Those are probably the top 2 tackles available on the board still. I would imagine there again they would have to move up because they have a number of teams with, with needs on the offensive line that would try to take those guys. So they have their options. I would imagine they start working the phones pretty early today, and see what it would cost to move up, and again see what they could get to move back, and kind of weigh their options there.
All right, Nikki, thank you so much for joining us live here on our Broncos virtual war room. You guys, if you do not subscribe to The Athletic, you have to, even if it's just to read Nikki's stuff. It is absolutely amazing. Nikki, thanks again.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Matt, back to you.
Thank you so much, Alexis Sullivan. I know in the lead up to the draft, you mentioned that the wide receiver draft class was extremely deep. But Jerry Jeudy was one of those top names. Where do you think, or what type of value do you think the Broncos got with Jeudy at 15?
Oh, I think they got excellent value. One might argue, Matt, that the Denver Broncos came away with arguably the best receiver in the 2020 draft class. And that's saying a lot because this is a draft class that's loaded with talented receivers. Most had Jeudy and CeeDee Lamb running neck and neck for that number 1 spot. And, of course, the other would be number 2. But the Las Vegas Raiders jumped in there, and they were able to get Henry Ruggs, which many of us didn't see as the first receiver coming off the board. We thought for sure it'd be Jeudy or Lamb. And so when the Broncos go on the clock at number 15, I could have run that card up to Roger Goodell. I knew they would grab Jerry Jeudy, and I'm sure they were cheering virtually, right, in their war room because he was the highest graded receiver by PFF when it came to attacking man-to-man coverage. He was the absolute best. He forces defenses to defend all 3 levels in the secondary because of his vertical speed, which is maybe something CeeDee Lamb didn't have. But he is so really good at hauling in contested catches, creating yards after the catch. Most of his production came from the slot, but we know that he can still operate out on the perimeter as well. So you pretty much have a receiver that's well-rounded that can do all the things you expect from a top-end player at his position.
We heard a lot about, in the lead up to this draft, about Courtland Sutton needing a running mate, maybe somebody at the slot-type receiver. We heard a lot about Justin Jefferson. What, in your mind, does Jeudy do well that separated himself? I know he's kind of an inside-outside guy. What does his skill set do that may have separated himself from some of the other receivers in the class?
He is by far the most polished route runner, okay? Very fluid in his movements. He doesn't use a lot of energy and effort to beat defensive backs. He can separate on a dime at the top of the route where he sticks that foot in the ground. Next minute, he's 10 yards of separation over here, and the defensive back is wondering where he just went. He's got not only what we call long vertical linear speed, he's got quick lateral speed as well. And that's what wide receivers need. That's something that maybe Henry Ruggs has. But when you talk about the vertical speed combined with the lateral quickness of Jerry Jeudy, and then his ability to haul the ball in, what we call at the top of the route, the contested catch rate, he checks all the boxes in every single area. And that's not something you could say about all of the other receivers in this draft class.
You guys at PFF have been on top of the numbers since day one. where are we going to look for good value here on day 2? Where are some of the, the points that the Broncos might look at and say, okay, we've got great value at this position?
2 positions that I think the Denver Broncos are still going to be shopping when you go into the draft later today. We're talking 2nd and 3rd round. I think you've got to be able, if you can, Josh Jones, the offensive tackle from the University of Houston, he's still out there. Many of us had him going on day 1. Now, the Bengals could snag him with the first pick in the 2nd round. Maybe the Broncos may want to move, but maybe he's still there when they go on the clock. That would be tremendous value because you'd be pretty much getting a first-round talent in the 2nd round. A couple of other players. I think another key position for the Denver Broncos here in the 2nd and 3rd round will be at cornerback, right? Chris Harris Jr., he leaves and goes to the Chargers. You'd love to be able to go into this draft and be able to find someone who can give you some snaps, quality, man-to-man coverage as well as zone. And so Jalen Johnson from the University of Utah, still there on the board. He's a guy that I would look at. Bryce Hall from the University of Virginia. One of those players I think are going to be available here in the 2nd round. Got to make up your mind. Do you want the offensive lineman or do you want to get that cornerback with that 2nd round pick? But I think one of those 3 players will be there when the Broncos go on the clock in the 2nd round.
Some very intriguing names right there. I know Johnson, especially the Utah guy, close by. I know a lot of Broncos country would be thrilled at that pick. Solomon, we appreciate your time. We'll look for your coverage on PFF. We appreciate you taking some time during a very busy day 2.
All right, Matt. All the best to you. Take care.
All right, Matt, that is all the time we have for this first hour of the Broncos Virtual War Room. Coming up here in the next hour, we will be joined by a plethora of guests. Steve Atwater will be our co-host for the entire hour. He will interview Rod Smith as well as Terrell Davis. We will have a ton of current Broncos players calling in as well. You will not want to miss it. That is coming up here on hour 2 of the Broncos Virtual War Room presented by Bud Light. We'll see you right back here in 60 seconds.